Happy to connect with you again. When I released my last video related to living life unlimited, living in freedom, and that was part 1 of this multi-part series, one of my friends called up and said, hey, I like the fact that you shared your personal experience and your current state of mind to tell us as to why do you feel that you are living in freedom. But each one's life has got a context, a particular kind of a situation or circumstance. So is there anything that you would give as a guideline in terms of how to live in freedom for anyone to pick up and practice? And I thought about it. A couple of ideas came to my mind. The first thought that came to my mind is that we need to ask this question when we talk about living in freedom. This question, are you choosing to live in a time zone which is not now? Are you tending to live more in the past or more into the future and not choosing to live in the present? Then there is a possibility that you may tie down yourself with things that you don't intend to. Let me clarify. When I'm, for example, thinking about the past, brooding over the past, or analyzing about the past, let's realize that I'm spending time on something which is already a reality. It has happened. It's there. I can spend just about that amount of time to learn from that, but in terms of saying that I wish it had not happened, or saying could I handle it better, or saying it has left me with this kind of terrible feeling, or on the other hand I think it was amazing, I think I just love it, and relishing on that, all that's okay, but you're already dealing with something that has happened in the past. Give that past a respectful, meaningful time to be allocated, and then next thing to do is just move on. Whether it was good or bad, learn to move on. The past can slow you down. Whether it is regret or rejoicing, spending too much of time in the past can slow you down. And slowing you down could also mean that you're mentally caught up. And the moment you're caught up, mentally or physically, it is an imprisonment of a particular kind. It may be a soft imprisonment, but don't get stuck over there, is what I would say. So when it comes to me about negative things or so-called regretful things of the past, I spend very little time other than immediately dealing with it, figuring out, what is that I could have learned from that, and then putting it out there. After that, I'm very, very clear that it's about the past. It's about the past about which I can do nothing anymore. Even if it was an argument or a fight with your spouse, and it was just about 2 hours back, and it had created bitterness, I think it is such a simple and essentially healthy thing to say, you know what, put it out there. I mean, we're not going to be living in some muck and crap that happened 2 hours back. Let's move on. I think that spirit is so much very important. But I think that's the biggest challenge that most human beings have. In the sense, we hold on to grudges, we hold on to regrets, we hold on to unsettled scores so very strongly. I think it's a whole waste of both real time and emotional energy. And that doesn't let you live in freedom. So, it chains you to a past which has already happened, and not recognizing that there is nothing about it that you can do now is a bit of a blindness that we create for ourselves. I think we need to move from the past. That's very important. I think the second important thing that I realize related to living in freedom is, again, not getting hooked onto the future too much. Ask a very simple but intelligent question. Can you ever live in the future? No way. You can talk about planning for the future, and planning is an intellectual exercise that I do right now in terms of thoughts dealing with a terminology called the future, isn't it? So when I say that I'm dealing with my future, or when I'm saying that I'm planning for my future, what I'm really doing is I'm doing an exercise right now which hopefully will give me some kind of a thought, idea, strategy, a technique, a tactic to deal with what may come up at a later date or at a future time. Future is all about something that is yet to happen, and spending too much of time about that future in terms of anything, any one of these things like hopes, ambitions, objectives and goals, promises, resolutions, all of these need to be dealt with certain pinch of salt, as if I may say so. Why do I say pinch of salt? In the sense, don't make it more serious than what it really requires. Because even anything related to the future has meaningfulness only if you are engaging in something extremely meaningful right at this present. You may actually be wondering, why am I smiling at this so much? Because repeatedly, I've discovered that some of my greatest aha moments are when I have let go of anything which is even loosely tied to a word called ambition or a promise, whether I have made it to somebody else, to myself, or something that I may call as a must achieve kind of a goal. Those things have really tied me down in kind of bundles, and the kind of constant evaluation as to whether it's going to happen or not happen, and losing sleep over all that. I'm not saying these are immature acts. All the companies, corporates, business organizations, practically everyone who seems to be walking a pathway of meaningful career progression or working towards a future sets up goals, and doesn't he or she work towards that future? I'm saying sure. All that I'm again saying is learn not to become a victim of getting hooked onto that future or that promise that you made. Yeah, make reasonable assumptions, but engage right now. I think that's the most important. You can make realistic self-assessments, reviews, that's okay, but don't let these things build anxiety. I think one of the biggest challenges that I find in people these days is having converted the word future into this word anxiety. I think when you live in being caught up with this future and live with concern and anxiety which is not healthy and which is not deserved by you in the first place, you lose your freedom, because freedom is the ability to live in the present and enjoy the present completely. That's living in freedom. And the third thing that strikes my mind is living in the present and living in freedom means not living in your ego trap. So this is the first suggestion that I have towards living in freedom, which means that if you want to enjoy the unlimitedness at this point of time, be completely engaged and conscious of the present. You can be conscious of the present, mind, body and soulfully, which will help us to experience the unlimitedness of our life. Anything that takes us to getting hooked on to the past or to the future would have their own kind of limitations, and to be watchful of this, not spending, wasting or getting hooked on to the past or to the future is one very important clue towards living in freedom. And then comes, of course, the most important thing. Living in freedom and living in awareness means not living in your ego trap. But that will be the next session, the next video. Till then, goodbye, all the very best.